So we're back in the studio, and I've started the recording slightly early because Lizzie was cheating in one of our one of our competitive moments. How are you? Welcome back to the land of the UK, the land of royals, the land of studios, the land of microphones.
Thank you.
And not a Zoom call in sight.
Not a Zoom call in sight. Yeah, it's nice to be back in the studio, although a little bit colder in the UK than it was in Florida.
We don't want to hear about your holiday in Florida. It's
holiday?
We've spoken enough about the holiday in Florida.
Working very hard.
Last week we called it a bumper week because there was literally loads and loads and loads of stuff. This week is not quite as bumper. But
quite a significant week.
Significant week, I would say. Yeah, I agree with you as well. And actually, most significant of all, I think, and a conversation that I'm sure many women and men will associate with was the one that Meghan opened up about in her article for the New York Times, which was her admission of, sadly, a miscarriage back in July, which was very sad news to hear. But the way in which she opened up about it, a very private matter, but done in quite a public forum, she got a lot of praise for that.
She has, about opening a conversation about a very difficult and very personal subject, but also something that sadly happens to many women.
Yeah, so 1 in 5 people think, 1 in 4.
I think her article has been rightly praised.
Yeah, and as we will discuss, also reaching out to dads-to-be who have suffered a loss as well. And then broadening out more widely to the whole situation with COVID. There we go. Before we get into too much detail on that, which is sad, and as I'm sure you will agree, let's do the Robinsons' royal rundown for the week, which includes a bit of Meghan, a bit of Charles Spencer, the ongoing panorama, house moves, dogs, and COVID.
Shall I go for it?
Go for it.
So, first of all, as you mentioned, the very sad news this week that Meghan had a miscarriage, and she wrote a very poignant and moving article in the New York Times. In other news, Earl Spencer this week said that he was not at all satisfied by the parameters that had been set by the independent inquiry into the Panorama interview with his sister, Princess Diana. And we also had this week a little bit of reaction from Prince Harry into his feelings on the inquiry and also how he's being kept abreast of all developments. We also learnt that Princess Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank are moving into Frogmore Cottage, which is obviously Harry and Meghan's UK residence. The Cambridges sadly announced on Instagram that they had lost their dog Lupo, who was 9 years old. William congratulated the Oxford researchers on their vaccine breakthrough, and that followed a visit that he had to them back in June, so he was congratulating them on their work. We had some news this week on Kate's Big 5 questions into early years, and Camilla marked International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women with a video message. And as you mentioned, Princess Michael of Kent, we found out that she has COVID, or is suffering from the sort of effects of COVID.
Okay, thank you very much. So, where to begin? I think there's an obvious place to begin, really, and it's, as we discussed at the top, the article that the Duchess of Sussex penned for the New York Times about her and Harry's loss back in July came out of the blue. We're told the royal family found out about it before. We don't quite know when, but some time ago, and their response, generally, we were told, wasn't it, was one of sadness. How could it not be? But for the rest of us, really, we kind of found out with a little message from Prince Harry and Meghan's office on Wednesday morning to say that here is an article that Meghan's written for the New York Times, and it kind of speaks for itself. Yeah,
and I think it does. I think it's incredibly moving, and sort of the words almost kind of tumble off the page, don't they? You just sort of... she sort of is very frank about their story and the emotions that not only she went through, but also Prince Harry went through, and that realisation, she says, you know, as I clutched my firstborn child, that I was losing my second. It's deeply moving and a very sad article, and as you say, we've heard the royal family are understandably sad at their loss.
A very personal thing to share in a very public space. And given that Meghan and Harry, left the royal family or as working members of the royal family in order to seek greater privacy, one of the questions being asked is why they decided to share this news.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously deeply personal, but Meghan, by using her platform to open a conversation here, she can do, it has real power and can really help people. And she is using that position and that platform she has to help other people and to sort of spark that conversation. And lots of people said that, by her talking about it, she's almost removing the stigma around miscarriage.
Yeah, which was kind of the sort of general response, wasn't it? And we spoke to lots of people yesterday. There was the Miscarriage Association. We spoke to the chief executive of the Diana Award, who knows Prince Harry very well. So we'll bring you some of that reaction. But one bit of reaction I wanted to bring to you was a conversation that I had with Michelle from this app called Peanuts. It's an app on which women can share their experience of motherhood and of miscarriage as well. And interestingly, she got a phone call from the Duchess of Sussex not long after she gave birth to Archie to congratulate them about this app. And I thought it was quite an interesting conversation that they wrote this letter to Meghan saying, welcome, as one mother to another, as one woman to another, welcome to the world of motherhood. And she got a phone call from Meghan herself. This is the conversation I had with Michelle yesterday.
She called us. She said that actually it warmed her heart to know that there was an online community where women could turn for support.
What sort of difference will Meghan have made by talking about this issue so openly?
1 in 5 women are going to go through this, and for it to be something that we don't feel able to talk about is so sad, and it's pushing things under the surface. So I think she really has come out and helped so many women.
So that was Michelle Kennedy. I mean, quite interesting to got that phone call from Meghan. As she explained it to me, she just one day got a phone call. It said, "Hello, it's Buckingham Palace here. I've got the Duchess of Sussex on the line for you. Please, will you hold?" So,
well, it's a bit of a shock.
You kind of would, wouldn't you?
But we know, for Meghan, a lot of the work that she's done has had, she's been supporting other women, whether that's with SmartWorks charity or with the women from Grenfell or the women at the Luminary Bakery. Meghan, a lot of the work she did was in supporting other women, and I think that's what that call was about to Michelle, but that's what this is about too. It's about saying, it's okay to talk about it and you're not alone.
Yeah, and that was the general response yesterday, is that women are not alone in this at all. But also fathers are not alone either. Fathers to be, grieving a life that could have been and sadly wasn't. And someone who knows Prince Harry very well is the chief executive of the Diana Award, Tessy, who spoke to us ahead of what she said was quite a long board meeting yesterday, didn't she? But she spoke to us on Zoom just about how she thinks Harry and Meghan will be supporting one another.
I'm glad that they have each other and they've supported each other. I think that beyond that, as a society, we do need to be able to have those moments of check-in with people and say, are you okay?
And on that point of fathers, actually, one of the other points that Meghan wrote, wasn't it, was that I felt the clamminess of his palm and kissed his knuckles wet from both our tears, sort of saying how they both found this an upsetting experience, as you kind of would. We don't know what stage Meghan was at. We don't know, any more details other than the fact that she had a miscarriage. But I think opening it up to the fathers suffering as well as the mothers was, some people said it was quite important.
Quite important, yeah. Lots of the charities, while praising Meghan for the article, it was also, praising her for making it about both parts of the couple. And like you say, that is important to reflect that.
Yeah, and I know that we've got a pregnancy ongoing at the moment, haven't we, Eugenie? But this child, we suspect, would have been Prince Charles's 5th grandchild.
Yeah.
The Queen's 9th or 10th great-grandchild, isn't it? So, so anyway, we're talking about it for many reasons, but Meghan's opened up a conversation and most people are commending her for that. I thought the other interesting point was the way she referenced the Tom Bradby interview that he did on ITV for that big documentary last year. We were there, weren't we, in Johannesburg when he did it, and asked that question. Well, why don't we hear it again? I mean, the question and answer that Tom and Meghan had, and Meghan said that question from Tom asking her, "Are you okay?" was actually very important, and we all should do that more often.
Thank you for asking, because not many people have asked if I'm okay. And the answer is, would it be fair to say not really? Okay, as in it's really been a struggle.
Yes.
So are you okay? It was quite an important question, that just to finish up on this was something we should all be asking each other, particularly, she writes, at a time when we are all suffering loss, because of COVID.
Yeah, the loss and pain that's plagued every one of us in 2020, she writes about, and that we all need to do more to ask each other, are we okay? And that's something that they have mentioned quite a lot in work they've been doing recently. The teenage podcast they did recently, Harry spoke a lot about asking people, are you okay? So that's obviously a conversation they want to open up more.
Yeah. The other big story this week, the story that isn't going away, is the one involving that Princess Diana interview from 1995, the one on Panorama, the one where she said there were three of us in the marriage. I mean, we talked about this last week, didn't we, with our Rosa Monckton interview. But we have heard from Princess Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, for the first time. We're just going to play you two clips of him. One is Earl Spencer speaking on ITV's weekend show with Alan Titchmarsh called Love Your Weekend. I should be clear that this was recorded earlier in the month, on the 2nd of November.
Yep, correct.
And therefore, before a lot of this most recent developments happened in Panorama. But he also spoke to the ITV daytime show Lorraine as well, both about Diana. He actually spoke about the miscarriage, incidentally, but we'll play the clip that he mentioned about the Panorama programme and why it is he can't really say very much on it at the moment. Let's hear from those first.
I had formed my own opinion of the journalist quite a long time ago, and I knew what he had done to a certain extent. But it was only because of this anniversary that various TV production companies were looking into the real depths of what went on. And they got the Freedom of Information Act, which made the BBC release certain papers. And these they really shook me up, not just confirmation of what had happened behind the scenes, but also who knew and why it hadn't come out and why it hadn't been dealt with. So there's not an enormous amount I can say because the matter has gone to inquiry and my lawyers are very keen that I don't muddy the waters. But I think it's very important for people to realise what this isn't about. This isn't me saying that Diana should or shouldn't have spoken. I'm not. That was something separate. But what I am saying is that, in my view, the BBC have very, very serious questions to answer on this. And I was shocked and appalled. And do you know what? Diana has stood up for me a lot as my elder sister when I was a kid. And I'm very happy to do this for her. And ultimately, if I can get an apology out of the BBC for everything that they did around this, then I will feel semi-vindicated.
So quite a significant development from him, in that he's also tweeted this week, hasn't he, that he's not at all happy with the investigation that the BBC has set up, chaired by that former senior judge, Lord Dyson.
Yeah, he tweeted the other evening to say he'd been in contact with the BBC to say he's not at all satisfied with the parameters of the inquiry into the Panorama interview. And he said that Lord Dyson must be free to examine every aspect of this matter from 1995 to today as he sees fit, rather than being restricted in any way.
And just for clarity, the BBC responded and said it is,
a wide-ranging,
and all the rest of it. But the fact that Earl Spencer's still not happy with this inquiry that the BBC set up is, I think, quite significant. But we also heard, after hearing about William last week and his response to the BBC investigation, we've had a bit of feedback from Prince Harry's office, not from him himself. We were told this was from a source close to him. But I think it was interesting that they had responded as well. And also he was criticising those parts of the press that were trying to use this whole episode as a reason for putting a wedge between him and his brother William.
Yeah, so we talked last week about how William had been following this very closely, and they'd maintain channels of communication between William and the BBC as the inquiry was getting set up and as it goes forward. But this week we learnt that Harry too is getting regular updates and is aware of everything that's going on, and I don't think that's a great surprise. Of course Harry is going to want to know what's going on and be kept abreast of everything. And the source said to us that you do not need a public statement to imagine how he's feeling privately. People know how much his mother means to him. He has bravely spoken out in the past about loss and grief and the immense impact it has on him. Sadly, some people are not just seeing this as a drive for truth, but are also trying to use this as an opportunity to drive a wedge between the brothers.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty significant. I mean, how you can ever question someone's grief for their mother, and just because Harry hasn't spoken about it doesn't necessarily mean to say he's not feeling it equally as powerfully as William. So that one continues to rumble on, but no developments, because as we know the investigation is now currently underway.
But it does feel like this is not going to go away anytime soon for the BBC, and as Alan Titchmarsh said in relation to Diana, you know, he feels he has a duty to stand up to her, and I think if he feels that this isn't going how he sees fit, he will keep intervening and he will keep speaking out until this does get resolved in a way that he does does satisfy him.
Yeah, so said Charles Spencer on that Alan Titchmarsh show last weekend.
Is it always for you an ongoing battle in a way to try and keep that sense of perspective about Princess Diana and to correct inaccuracies, or do you just sit quietly?
I feel it's my duty to stand up for her when I can. She left me as, for instance, guardian of her sons, etc. So I feel there was a trust passed on, and we grew up together. You know, if you grow up with somebody, they're still that person. Doesn't matter what happens to them later. So, yeah, I feel very passionately that I have a role to honour her memory, really.
So, changing of the guard at Frogmore Cottage.
Yes. So Frogmore Cottage, the famous Frogmore Cottage, £2.4 million of taxpayers' money, has now been lying empty because Harry and Meghan...
There, £2.4 million of taxpayers' money, which is now being reimbursed to Harry and Meghan.
But it was controversial at the time because of the 2.4 million.
Because it was the number one item on the projects list.
And it's been lying empty since they vacated and went off for their new life in America, but it has new tenants.
I think we were told, you know, by a source in that Harry and Meghan's office that they would have probably been back here much sooner had it not been for COVID. And in any case, it's the kind of place that they would have to stay if they were going to come over for the court case, which we now know has also been delayed, for the reasons for which we still do not know, although we can guess, and we're not going to here. So Frogmore Cottage, it might get a bit crowded if Harry and Meghan do want to come over for a little stay in the UK, because they're going to bunk up together.
Shack up.
Yes.
So yeah, we're told that the Frogmore remains the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's residence in the UK.
And they're financially responsible for it.
And they will retain financial responsibility. And they are delighted to be able to open up their home to Princess Eugenie and Jack as they begin to start their own family. But they will also, when they're over, stay with them.
Right, and that baby's due in the new year.
In the spring.
In the spring.
Yeah.
Right, boy or girl?
Oh, well, we don't know. Are we guessing?
Yeah.
Well, I've got 50-50. Girl?
I'll go boy.
Okay.
Right, so pointless as that was.
We will return in the spring.
So you could end up with Harry and Meghan and Archie and Eugenie and Jack and boy or girl. All shacked up in there. But it's got something like, how many bedrooms has it got? Because I've read it was 5 separate cottages, wasn't it? And I've read something like it's got 10 bedrooms potentially, but I don't know whether that was 10 bedrooms before they
I don't
but
think it's that many.
It's big enough for that, to be fair, but it's not a cottage.
I thought it was more like
it's a substantial
5.
House.
Yeah, but we do know that Eugenie is very close, particularly to Harry, but the couples are close, and you know, I think it's really lovely for them that they can go and stay. They'll be very close to not only Granny,
to talk to when you come over, yes,
but also they're not far from Royal Lodge, which is just up the road.
Of course, Eugenie and Jack can go and see Prince Andrew as much as they want, as well as Sarah, Duchess of York. I believe they are living together, even though they're divorced. Quite how that works, we still don't officially know.
But it does seem a sensible thing to do.
The other thing we don't know about this is quite how the financial arrangements are between Eugenie and Jack and Harry and Meghan. That's obviously either have it on us, boys and girls, or because we've got this nice big deal,
yeah.
Netflix, or please pay us £40 a month for the house.
Gosh.
Or whatever.
If I'd known it's being rented out for £40 a month, I might have
applied
thrown
myself.
my hat in the ring.
Exactly. I might have called them up and asked them if I could stay there for a few months. So that's going to be quite interesting. Some more sad news about, not anywhere near as significant as Meghan's sad news, but an Instagram post from William and Kate this week about the passing of the pet. Lupo. Dog.
Yes.
Black.
Yes, this is really sad. Their 9-year-old black cocker spaniel, Lupo, who
Black
was
cocker spaniel. That's the thing I didn't know.
he was a wedding
Write that down.
present.
Black cocker spaniel.
He was a wedding present from Kate's brother James.
Right.
To the family, and they said on Instagram that they were very sad that their dear dog Lupo had passed away. He has been at the heart of our family for the past 9 years, and we will miss him so much. And that post was from Kate and William. And through the years, we've seen some really lovely pictures of the family, particularly George with Lupo. There's one of them all sitting on the window, looking out the window with Lupo, and there's one of George feeding Lupo an ice cream on a blanket. So, like any pet, very much the heart of the family.
Yeah, exactly. No one can appreciate what it's like to lose a pet until it's your own.
Yeah.
Really. But I think for that particular family, that was.
But I think that Lupo's name, it took a while to confirm what Lupo was called. I don't know if you remember 9 years ago. I think the name was kept under wraps for a long time until Kate let it slip during an engagement, and the pool reporter at the time heard it, and it was confirmed. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, if the dog was 9 years old and it was a wedding present, that means William and Kate must have been married for 9 years.
Oh wow, you're a genius! Oh my God, where do we find this genius? Oh my
I don't know whether anyone else put that together, but that means next year will be their 10th wedding anniversary.
Well, no, because we had the decade.
Well, yes.
We had the decade engagement interview, didn't we?
Yes.
That we aired.
Very
So yeah, we're looking at the decade.
Yes.
Anniversary. Yes.
You meant yes, not no.
I meant yes.
Yeah,
It's a genius.
Genius. So we can
Mensa, quickly sign this one up.
We can exclusively reveal on this podcast that next year William and Kate will celebrate their 10th wedding anniversary. You heard it here first. Talking of William, he was referring to his time in a white coat, wasn't he, this week? Because we had that the fantastic news that we all want to hear at the moment about a vaccine on its way. There are now 3, of course. There's, I wish I could remember them all, the Moderna one, the Pfizer one, and the Oxford one. So William went to the Oxford one, and this week they announced they had up to 90% effectiveness if you were given half a dose plus a full dose.
So half a dose plus a full dose would take you up to 90%.
2 full doses, you only get 60-something. That I couldn't understand. This is not a science podcast.
Thank goodness. I think I would be leaving pretty quickly.
What I did read into that, actually, just while we're on the subject and nothing to do with Prince William at all, is that if you can give half a dose and a full dose, that means there's more doses to go around. Surely. So,
genius. Wow. This is staggering.
Staggering. I mean, you've tuned into this podcast for royal news, and actually you're getting some really insightful scientific
Chris
analysis.
is doing maths, which is
So
William, back to William, who visited the researchers in June, and yes, he rang them Zoom call, as is everything, to congratulate them, and said how under pressure he felt that they all felt they were when he visited them.
Big deal on the Duchess of Cambridge this week, because as we know, she has often championed the research and the work into early years, from pregnancy all the way through to age 5, and she's pulling all those things together this week and talking as well about, because she had, what was it called, 5 big questions.
5 big questions.
Which was earlier this year, beginning of the year, wasn't it? When she went to all 4 parts of the UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Wales? Wales. Speaking like they're doing the Crown. Crown. How do you do the Crown?
Oh, well, I was listening
listening to that in
a podcast about how...
It's worth playing a clip of that, actually. It was on Netflix's...
It was on Netflix's Twitter.
It's
very funny about how they learn to how they learn to speak.
How to learn to speak like the royals. Actually, this is good. Have a listen to this.
I spoke to Josh O'Connor, and he was like, if you say is, it sounds like yes. Is. But I was like, is. I don't sound like I'm saying yes still.
Tighten your mouth a bit more and you just go, is. Everyone has a word that they say to get into an accent or a character.
What's your words that you use to get into character?
It's the crown, because they go crown. And every time I would say the crown,
Oh my
they
God.
just kind of go like, crown.
Crown.
If in doubt, they don't move their mouth.
So let's have a try of that then. So you have to say ears.
Ears.
So if I ask you a
yes.
question, have you had something to eat today? You would say
Ears.
So were you saying ears or yes?
Ears. Ears.
And what was the other thing that Anne was saying?
She uses the crown to get crown.
Crown.
Yeah, that one's harder. Ears is a good one.
Or
I like that one.
if you're from East London, you say the cran. Put the cran on your
She
head.
said that you have to keep your mouth as tight as possible. Don't let it move. Ears.
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 Oh, there we are.
There we are.
What were we talking about before we got to that?
Kate's big 5 questions, which is really important. So let's.
Yeah, sorry. So how do we get so distracted by that? I have no idea. Anyway,
I have absolutely no idea.
just to say that we make this up as we go along. Kate's 5 big questions have turned into 5 big answers, or 5. That's a name.
Yes.
You're going to tell us, aren't you?
Yes. So gosh.
Well, I've delivered the scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
and I have exclusively revealed their 10th wedding anniversary next
Yeah,
year.
wow.
This is the time when you give us your insightful knowledge of Kate's
Yeah.
5 big answers.
So Kate, for the 9 years that she has been
Nearly 10.
working royal, nearly 10, she has been very, very committed, as we know, to her early years
Yes.
work, and this is hugely. She's hugely passionate about this work, and like you say, she launched earlier this year the 5 big questions, and soon, later this week, we will have the 5 big answers, as you say, and this is the biggest survey of its kind. They had over 500,000 people respond, so the research is, hopefully going to be very valuable.
500,000 is 500,000. That's a big
Wow.
number. Well, just to keep bringing you these amazing stats.
These amazing stats.
Kate has spoken about it as well, so let's have a listen.
Earlier this year, we asked you 5 big questions about raising our under 5s. We wanted to hear what you think about the importance of the earliest years of our children's lives. More than 500,000 of you answered that call. So we've taken your input and combined it with even more public research to produce the UK's biggest ever study on the early years. This year has been a hugely challenging time for us all, and there hasn't been a more important moment to talk about families. Later on this week, we'll share 5 big insights that we've discovered, and I will take your questions. This is just the beginning, and I want to thank you for starting a conversation, because we're all on this journey together.
So we'll probably analyse this in full next week, but as I was just telling you, 5 big insights is what the 5 big questions has become. So the questions have led to insights from those 500,000 people, and it's quite a big deal for her, this, isn't it?
It's a huge deal for her. This is really important, and we can't talk about it in that much detail for this podcast, but we will talk about it in detail next week.
And in the meantime, you can always follow all of these developments on our social media pages, as I say every week, at Chrisship ITV on Twitter, at
Lizzie ITV.
And on Instagram at ITV News Royals, where you'll find all the information you need. So you can either drop listening to this podcast and just go on to Twitter,
Which,
or
after
you
this
can do both.
episode, you may well
After
decide.
this episode, you may well
that,
decide that you no longer want to listen in at all.
Yes.
Right, I've not got too many things left on my list. I'm going, as we were kind of talking about COVID a little earlier, I'm going to keep talking about COVID now.
Okay.
Now, Princess Michael of Kent has been confirmed that she is suffering from coronavirus, and that's actually quite ill for it. She hasn't been hospitalised. I was going to use that as a reason,
Or hospitalised,
not only
but I like hospitalised.
Gone to
Hospitalised.
hospital. She hasn't yet gone to hospital.
Specialises in maths, not English.
As most journalists don't. And she is quite seriously ill.
Yes.
But Prince Michael of Kent, who is her husband, you're looking at your notes, hasn't got COVID.
No.
Nor has her older sister-in-law, who is... I knew I'd get you at some point.
Alexandra.
Yes, well done. Princess Alexandra, who is the older sister of Prince Michael of Kent. And nor has Princess Alexandra's older brother...
Duke of
Kent.
Kent.
Yes.
If I just keep
Well done.
saying Kent's at you.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Whose first name is
Edward.
Edward. Well done. Only because I told you this earlier in the week. Whose father is
cousin is the Queen.
The father, Duke of Kent.
It's
quite an easy answer, this one. The Duke of Kent's father is the former Duke of Kent.
Yes, and
who was a son of
George the Fifth,
and younger brother of.
It's like a history lesson.
Anyway, we're kind of doing a sort of verbal royal family tree here.
Yes, and lost the majority of our listeners, no doubt.
So anyway, as you all know, that King George V and Queen Mary of Teck had lots of children. The first was Edward VIII, David, and then it was Albert, who became King George VI. And then there was their sister, the Princess Royal, and then there was the Duke of Gloucester, and then there was the Duke of Kent, who had 3 children, Edward, Alexandra, and Michael. And Michael's wife is Princess Michael of Kent.
Princess Michael of Kent. And there is the full
what's not to know?
Circle.
You get insight on this podcast. Anyway, we wish her well.
Yeah,
once we've established who she is and where she fits into the
family tree.
One interesting fact I learned from all this is that the older brother, the Duke of Kent, when he was born, he was 7th in line to the throne, which was quite close by all accounts. Which is the kind of position that Archie has these days.
It's exactly where Archie is, yeah.
So, he was pretty high up there. Not anymore. He's been bumped down.
No.
And continues to be bumped down, as we learned from The Crown. Unless you're at the centre, you ain't part of the club.
Yeah, and actually we've had another very busy episode, so we haven't got to speaking about The Crown, but we can just reiterate that there is a lot of, it's good, but a lot of it is fiction and not fact.
Yes, but worthwhile. Well, I've now seen episodes like 1, 6 and 10 because the way in which my family are watching them, and I'm never there, so I need to catch
hang
up
on, sorry, there's
a
violin, there's a violin somewhere.
Yeah, but obviously in your 2 weeks of isolation after your holiday in Florida, you managed to catch up on all 10, yeah?
I did, yes,
well done.
I did.
I'm very, very, very pleased for you that you've had that time to do that.
One other thing we should play
Camilla?
Is Camilla. She marked the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women with a video message. This is obviously an issue that means a lot to Camilla, and she has done whatever she can to highlight the issue and raise as much awareness as possible, particularly during COVID, when for a lot of people, home is not safe.
Today gives us all the opportunity to remember those who have suffered and those who tragically have died as a result of these heinous crimes. I very much hope that it will encourage all of us to help people we know who might be living in the dark world of abuse and coercion. This will be particularly important in the build-up to Christmas, a time when, very sadly, domestic abuse increases. But today is also a day that can give us hope. Together we can and we must eliminate violence against women. Each one of us has a part to play, to do everything in our power to raise awareness, to reach in to others, and to support and be inspired by those very brave survivors. Violence against women is everyone's problem, and the solution must be too.
And we've got a lot of respect for Camilla's work in this area, and we experienced that firsthand when we went to Northern Ireland recently and saw how serious an issue this is, particularly in lockdown. I'm at the end of my list.
I'm at the end of my list.
Right, so other than The Crown, which we keep promising to talk about but don't, but it might help if I watched all of them before we do. Let's wait for a really quiet week, if they ever give us one, and then we can talk about The Crown in a lot of detail, which we good fun as well. But we've at least discussed how they managed to pronounce things on The Crown.
Yes.
And you've learned so many other facts on this podcast, like William and Kate's 10th wedding anniversary.
It's been, insightful.
I think we're going to put this podcast up for an award now.
I thought you were going to say put it to bed.
Or put it in the trash. One or the other.
So next week we have Kate's
big questions.
5 big questions.
And they're now called the 5 big
insights,
as you know.
And then there are other exciting things to talk about in future podcasts that we can't reveal just yet, but it is worth keeping tuned.
Can't even give you a hint of what it's about. It involves movement. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that's fine.
I think we should.
We're going to be talking about movement at some point in the future. I'm not going to say any more, so I'm going to shut up and see you next week. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as others haven't.